question, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, 86 people were killed in Gaza by Israeli forces. A further 56 were shot dead whilst queuing for food to try to sustain themselves under the occupation of the Israeli forces. Israel stands condemned for acts of genocide, for war crimes, for their occupation of Gaza and their activities in the West Bank. So 2 points to the Deputy Prime Minister. Why does Britain still supply parts for the F-35 jets that have been used to take so much life in Gaza? And secondly, how is it that this country has got to this situation where we stand on the wrong side of international law when war crimes and genocide are concerned? So will she support my private member's bill calling for an independent inquiry into how our policies evolved into this parlous situation?
Yeah. The Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Israel's recent action is appalling and counterproductive, and we strongly oppose to the expansion of military operations, settler violence and blocking of humanitarian aid. We have suspended FTA talks and sanctioned extremists supporting settler expansion in the West Bank, and it's a long-standing principle, Mr. Speaker, that genocide is determined by competent international courts and not for governments, and we do not sell arms trades directly to IDF that might breach international humanitarian law.
In a tense exchange during Prime Minister's questions, former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn challenged the UK government over its continued military ties with Israel amid ongoing violence in Gaza, calling for a full public inquiry into British complicity in Israeli military operations. Corbyn, now sitting as an independent MP, accused the government of standing on the wrong side of international law, following reports of mass civilian casualties in Gaza and the West Bank. Corbyn asked why Britain continues to supply components for F-35 fighter jets that are allegedly being used in Israeli airstrikes. He then urged Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, standing in for Keir Starmer, to support his private member's bill, which seeks to establish an independent inquiry into the UK's military cooperation with Israel, including arms sales, intelligence sharing, and logistical support. Corbyn's remarks have reignited a long-standing and politically volatile debate within Westminster over arms sales and military partnerships with Israel, particularly as civilian casualties and accusations of war crimes mount. His proposed bill, while unlikely to pass without government support, puts pressure on the Labour front bench and the wider political establishment to re-examine Britain's defence export policies. Critics of the government have argued that statements condemning violence ring hollow, while arms exports to Israel remain active. Campaigners from groups such as Stop the War Coalition and Amnesty International have joined the call for transparency regarding UK military exports and their potential use in violations of international law. Rayner's remarks mark one of the strongest statements from a senior government figure to date regarding Israel's blockade of aid into Gaza, signaling a subtle but noticeable shift in tone. As the humanitarian crisis deepens and public scrutiny of foreign policy intensifies, the question now hangs over Parliament. Will the UK government merely condemn the consequences of war, or finally confront its own role in enabling it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure to stand opposite the Right Honourable Lady. Despite what many may think, we have a great deal in common, not least that we both viscerally disagree with the Chancellor's tax policies. And it is great to see the Right Honourable Lady standing in temporarily for the Prime Minister for the second week running, although I know there are many sitting behind her who wish this was a permanent arrangement. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, you will find many of their names amongst the 122 who have signed up to oppose the government's welfare bill. They say that the bill is dangerously rushed and ill thought through. So can the Right Honourable Lady explain why she thinks that she is right and 122 of her own colleagues are wrong?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, it's nice to face the latest wannabe. I'll tell the exactly right, Honourable Member, why we're pressing ahead with our reforms, and that is because we're investing £1 billion into tailored employment support, a right to try to help more people back into work, and ending reassessments for the most severely disabled who will never be able to work. Mr. Speaker, we won't walk away and stand by and abandon millions of people trapped in the failing system, left behind by him and his colleagues.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Lady completely sidestepped my question. She can't even defend her own government's policy. Can she at least assure the House that the vote on Tuesday will actually go ahead?
On Tuesday.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if he sort of listened to what I said because I was reading off the script, but what I can tell him, and I don't need the script, we will go ahead on Tuesday.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Speaker. There will be a vote in this House on Tuesday on the welfare bill, although many on the back benches could be forgiven for thinking they've heard this before with the winter fuel payment, where they were marched up the hill, and we all know where that story ended.
In a pointed exchange that underscored mounting tensions within the Labour Party, Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride turned his fire on Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, questioning her authority amid reports that 122 Labour MPs are prepared to rebel over the government's controversial welfare reform bill. Stride, standing in for the absent Prime Minister during a heated Commons session, seized the opportunity to exploit Labour's internal divide. With the government facing increasing scrutiny over plans to tighten welfare eligibility and cut support for vulnerable families, the real political drama appeared on the opposition benches, where a large faction of Labour MEMPs has signalled deep unease with the party leadership's position. Angela Rayner, who has been thrust into the spotlight in the absence of Keir Starmer, defended the government's stance with characteristic defiance. "We are committed to a welfare system that is fair, compassionate, and financially sustainable," she said, dismissing the rebel threat as a difference of opinion rather than an existential crisis. But behind the chamber's performative sparring lies a deeper rift. Reports indicate that over 120 Labour MPs, including senior backbenchers and members of the Socialist Campaign Group, are preparing to vote against the bill, warning that the proposed reforms would disproportionately affect disabled claimants, single mothers, and low-income workers already struggling under the cost of living crisis. The rebellion presents a political headache not only for the government, which faces criticism for the moral implications of the cuts, but also for Labour's leadership, which must now navigate a precarious coalition of centrists and the party's traditional left flank. Stride, clearly enjoying Labour's discomfort, framed the dispute as a test of leadership. "If the Deputy Prime Minister can't even convince her own party, how can the public trust Labour to lead the country?" he quipped. For now, the Labour leadership is attempting to project unity and discipline, even as it braces for a turbulent vote. But the showdown is looming. As the public watches Parliament lurch toward another high-stakes confrontation over economic policy and social responsibility, the battle lines are drawn not just between parties, but within them. And for Angela Rayner, the question remains, can she hold the line, or will Labour's internal contradictions crack wide open under pressure?